So welcome along. This is our inaugural Irish version of our Diary of a CIO. We normally have presented this from the UK with our CEO, Sarah Pawson, but this year we've decided to bring in an Irish version of the event, and I'm delighted to have Aisling Hayes alongside me, who is current COO and the Transformation Director in AXA Insurance. So welcome aboard, Aisling, to our very first Diary of a CIO. So yeah, listen, we've been doing this for, as I say, 18 months or so, I think coming up on 2 years, and it's gone really well. It's a nice way to engage with some of our clients and understand a little bit more about, we create these personal relationships, but I suppose people don't always get to see this side of Aisling, or, you know what I mean? You've got a LinkedIn presence, people know you from that side, but it's nice to get a vibe for who's behind the face on LinkedIn and see where things are at. So I suppose we might kick off with discussing your current role, and then we'll sort of head back to what got you to where you are now, and everything in between if we can and if we have enough time. So as I said, you're currently COO and Transformation Director with regulatory responsibility for CIO duties as well. Is that correct? That's quite a title.
Yeah, it is. So I'm responsible for transformation in AXA Ireland, and also the IT, digital, strategic change, data and AI, of course, outsourcing, third party, and operation excellence. So there's quite a broad set of teams in there, but they all work really well together. So yeah, I suppose with that kind of broadness and role, no 2 days are really the same.
Yeah.
So I suppose I find myself zooming in and zooming out just to make sure that the day runs smoothly. But also I suppose the most important thing for me is steering us all towards our long-term transformation goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've been there, coming up on 11 years now at this stage, I think.
Yes.
It might be scary when you hear it that way. I'm sort of touching 20. Well, I've just gone over 23 years here, and you kind of get that feeling of where's the time gone, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, up until recently, I think I was still the new girl on the block, and suddenly
it's
I'm
one of those environments.
Woman.
absolutely. But I suppose the variation in the titles you've had and the roles you've taken on in that time, that must be one of the reasons why the longevity in your stay has been there. Because you know yourself, CIOs will often, or COOs will often land in a company, have a 3 or 4 year vision, and hope that they deliver that and then look for the next thing. And that hasn't been you, because I've known you a long time, and you've always been with AXA in that time, So what has it been that's sort of kept you there and kept you, invigorated on a constant basis?
Yeah, well, I suppose I actually joined as CIO, and I mean, AXA Ireland at the time it was a completely different organization. So I suppose, through the years, I've seen AXA Ireland grow and change, and it continues to change. And that in itself has kept me kind of really interested and challenged. It was back in 2016, actually, that I took on broader responsibilities as a COO, and I was actually responsible for our operation center in Derry and our branch network. So that gave me, I suppose, an amazing opportunity to really understand, to go look much broader than what I was doing at the time, and to really kind of dig deep and understand the business in a much better way. And I suppose it's on the back of that I suppose that has really helped me in my role as the transformation director. And I think definitely what's kept me there is the learning. I definitely never thought I'd say that I was, at this ripe old age, that I'd still be learning, but I'm like a sponge at the moment. I'm absolutely loving it. Just, continuing to understand and challenge as well how the organization, the full breadth of the organization works as part of that transformation role. So it's been, 11 years, and I've, responsibilities have shifted in those 11 years. But right now, I suppose, main part of my role in terms of what keeps me busiest through the day is the transformation director element. I suppose, I've always loved anything that, taking something complex, breaking it down and building it back better. And I suppose the role at the moment is exactly that, because I suppose, AXA Ireland is one of the biggest insurance companies in the market, and leading the biggest transformation program in the market for insurance is a great place to be.
Absolutely. And you touched on the continuous learning and the fact that you're like a sponge at the moment. Where does that knowledge and where does that learning come from? Is that coming from peers within the business and leadership within the business? Because obviously you're obviously at a very senior level, but there's still realms within the overall AXA group that you can draw from, draw knowledge from. Or are you finding that coming from outside of your business where you're engaging with others in similar type organizations and then you're bringing that back to AXA? Which way are you sort of attacking that, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, I suppose the easy answer would be all of the above.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I suppose it starts. I mean, clearly, there's keeping an eye on what's going outside in the market. So that's important. Keeping an eye on what's going on in the group, building relationships with my peers at the group to understand what's happening in those entities. But within AXA, as I said, it's about getting involved in more, discussions that are outside of my area. It's about talking to people in different teams at different levels. Obviously, you learn so much when you do even just the call listing. So in my role at the moment, I could be talking strategy on one morning, and then later that day, I'm standing at a whiteboard with a team sketching out a customer journey or having a conversation with one of the functional or delivery teams. So you can't be the expert yourself in everything, but there's somebody in the organization who's the expert. So it's about just constantly talking to those people and getting their input, their insight that keeps you kind of learning all the time.
Absolutely. And you mentioned something there a few minutes ago in terms of the branch network and being responsible for that back when you kind of kicked off into the COO piece a few years back. I suppose the difference you must see in the financial services landscape and how we've switched away, not fully, I know there's still a branch network there, but if you think about the banks, the insurance companies, the idea of going in to a branch now, and I know it's still an option for some of your customer base, but the idea of going into a branch network to take out your new home policy or your new motor policy is almost alien to a chunk of people now. How have you handled that transition, or how have you sort of found that change? And obviously you're involved in technology transformation as part of what you do, but how have you found that in terms of moving away from that branch network into the more digital environment we're in these days?
Yeah, I suppose it's been a while now, but probably about 8 years ago, or 7 years ago, we did go through a process of looking at our branch network, and we downsized our branch network. And that was really about optimizing what we had. We still feel there is a value in our branches. It's just, now it's about making sure that they're in the right areas and that they're doing the right things. But I suppose customers are changing, customer expectations are changing. So we have to keep, we'll constantly be looking at that. What works today mightn't work in 2 years' time, and then might be completely different again in 5 years' time. Clearly, we're moving towards a digitally led world, but there are still customers out there, whether they're vulnerable customers or a particular cohort, or they're in a location where even Wi-Fi isn't great. That actually are utilizing our branch network. But as I said, I don't have a crystal ball right now that says this is what the world is going to be like in 10 years' time. We actually just need to keep watching. It's all about understanding what the customer is doing and where the customer is moving. And as long as we continue to move with that vibe, we'll stay current. Right now, there is our value in our branch network, and we are working towards actually digitally enabling them and I suppose changing their roles so that they are supporting customers in terms of moving to digital. But we will continue to assess that.
Perfect. And in terms of the role you're in now from a leadership capacity, I suppose how do you keep yourself in a situation whereby you can have an environment around you that there's positive and honest feedback coming back to you based on maybe your leadership decisions, the strategy you have for the business? Like, I know the team that work with you, and from my experience, they've always said you're very approachable. I'm not just saying this because you're on the podcast now, but they've always said you're very approachable. And you're driven, but you are easy to talk to and easy to engage with. How do you create that environment, or what has been your experience in the past? Maybe it's negative experience experiences that you had that said, well, I'm not going to manage a team that way, or maybe it was a positive experience that you said, yeah, like that's the way I want to run a team in the future. But how do you keep the honest feedback coming to you from a team that are working up into your level?
I suppose I remember someone always saying to me, feedback is a gift. And I think, so obviously there are the usual organizational mechanisms that are formal around 360-degree feedback, but they in themselves are quite insightful because they are mostly anonymous. So you do get really great feedback from that, but the informal feedback is important. And for me, I think it's definitely about making time to have conversations with colleagues at every level.
Yeah.
And the most valuable insight as to, how you're doing or how your team is doing really comes from the teams closest to the customer or the operations or the delivery work. But I also do rely on probably informal mentors and peers outside of AXA for perspective. And of course, my own colleagues.
Yeah.
We've got great relationships. So we're all pretty honest with each other.
Yeah.
But for me, it is extremely important to look for feedback, but also stay transparent with your teams. And if you have those difficult questions, like we have our usual COO monthly town hall, and there's always the Slido questions at the end, and most of them are anonymous. And I suppose that gives people the space to ask the questions. So maybe they don't want to speak up and ask, but you got to make sure. And I'm always, I try and be really true to myself in terms of, I'm not going to fudge the answer. Even if it's a difficult answer, I'm going to give that answer. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, the anonymous feedback piece can be really helpful, even when you go to the events and the CIO summit, whatever it might be. The ability, because sometimes people have some very insightful questions or advice or suggestions, whatever it might be, but they don't love the microphone put in front of their face. And that can be a really handy way to get some feedback from the crowd when you're running a town hall the size that you would be. I can imagine that's really beneficial. And what would you say maybe over the last 3 years has been, I suppose, the biggest challenge that you've run into in the role that you're in with AXA at the moment, and I suppose what did you do to push through that, and what lessons did you take from it?
I suppose if I look in the immediate term, I suppose we're just working through the foundational phase of our transformation, but really it took pretty much over a year to get that groundwork in place before we're starting to show visible results. I didn't expect it, but the biggest challenge was actually keeping teams motivated during that period, but also keeping stakeholders feeling included and aligned during that time. That was pretty tough.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember feeling absolutely gutted with some feedback that a stakeholder gave that they didn't feel close to what was happening earlier in the year. I suppose the lesson for me was that, you can't wait until something is near perfect. You've got to be transparent about the journey, what's done, what's not done, the questions we're trying to answer, and just keep reinforcing the why and seeking input. It can be difficult sometimes to share, if you think, well, I don't actually have the answer yet. That can be difficult.
I'll tell you when I have it.
Yeah, when I've something that's meaningful to share, I'll ask you. But actually, the learning for me here was, even when you are at the start of the journey, just keep asking, talking about it, seeking input. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's really interesting. And I suppose over the years, you've probably seen it, and I've definitely seen it from the other side of the fence when we're trying to help with resourcing or being a partner for a large transformation program or whatever it might be. It sounds like, as tough as it has been for you to keep the stakeholders engaged, to keep the executive engaged, because I've no doubt that you got pressure from the exec as well, asking you, well, where are we at with this? Why is it taking so long? But we've both seen programs and large transformation programs fall flat on their face in year 2 and year 3 because the foundations were never actually put in place. So I think you deserve a lot of credit for standing firm on that and ensuring that you gave it the time to be comfortable when you walked into the next step to say, okay, I'm happy with the foundations. I'm happy with what we've done to map out what we want to actually achieve in year 3, year 4, year 5. Because so often we've seen a lot of money spent and not a lot of results delivered in big transformation programs.
It's important that it's not just me and it's not just my program. And we're definitely there now in AXA. And part of that was making sure that we have, leaders across the business were seconded into the program. We built cross-functional squads to break those silos. and really worked hard on the why, and across all teams, even at the exec level, agreeing and aligning on the, what success looks like for us all.
Yeah.
Because if we all align, if we're all stand behind what success looks like, well, then we're all pulling in the same direction, and we're all accountable and owning the transformation. And I think that was key in terms of getting this right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose that's the big question everybody talks about at the moment. I'm not sure everybody has the answers around AI. Where is that sitting within this transformation, or within the group, even if it's outside of this transformation? Everybody's trying to find the areas where we can utilize it, where the efficiencies will be, a benefit to the business, without making people fearful of their jobs, without, handing over our control, so to speak, of our customers or our processes. And we're the same in the recruitment industry. It's becoming a big part of what we do, but you don't want to just become an agency that has AI doing everything in the background and you're just the face of it. How have you looked to implement that into your transformation program, and where AXA is going on its roadmap to make the most of it in its current state? Because we both know 2 years from now, it'll be very different than what it is now, but in its current state, how do you see that engaging with what you're doing?
Well, AI has been in insurance companies for a long time, because you've got, that's the basis of the pricing models, the claims analytics. So, for us now, it's about expanding that approach, that capability, and scaling it over time. So we're actually running, and the best way to do that is to run the like a 2-track process. So it's not just about what transformation the program can bring in terms of AI. We're actually we're trialing it in in the existing business, and we're referring to as BAU. We're looking at how can we help agents in terms of being more efficient, the customer service automation, whether it's claims triage, whether it's fraud detection, and whether it's that personalized experience from a customer perspective. So for us, AI is part of insurance, and analytics is part of insurance. Yes, we have to be more structured in how we approach that, and I've brought in a chief data officer to lead in that regard. But it's not a case of decentralizing everything, because the optimization of those models and the actually sweating the asset needs to come from the various business areas. But yeah, running a 2-track process, trialing different things, whether it's claims, customer experience, the technical excellence piece or efficiency piece, and then scaling it through the business transformation program. But I suppose while there's opportunities with AI, we also need to be really careful. There are risks. Even if you use ChatGPT yourself at a personal level, you'll see that sometimes you ask a question and that the answer is wrong.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We've got to get beyond. We need to find a way to trust, but you're not just going to trust blindly. So it's how do you monitor? How do you check? How do you ensure you're not building bias into the models? And then how do you explain the answer that the model gives you? That is really, really key for the future. So we'll definitely, I suppose we're very much on that track in terms of utilizing it internally, but it will be a while before we expose it to customers, because we've got to make sure we're doing it right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes sense. And I don't know how much you can share on this, but I can imagine you're using it in your, as you say, in your claim systems or your sort of actuarial systems for mapping stuff out. But how much does it, or might it, play a part in your contact center as well? So, in terms of listening to calls, identifying patterns within those calls, prompting agents as to, what they might be able to offer or say, or picking up on stuff that maybe an agent hasn't picked up on in that call, and suggesting that something's actioned in the call. Is that where it's going as well within the insurance industry, or how is it looking at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, certainly from a call center perspective, we're already running with call summarization pilots, quality checking. So for me, it's about, AI is just another team member.
Yeah.
It helps with the research, it helps with the drafting, it can help with summarizing, with testing, or with analyzing something. But the focus of the people, the human, is definitely over time. It's going to shift. Like we still have judgment. We still are the creative part of the the partnership. We still have influence. We're still the decision makers. So while I think while AI definitely brings efficiency and can accelerate delivery, it doesn't run wild on its own.
It needs some parameters and some boundaries. I think is a fair way of putting it. And obviously, you've mentioned there earlier on that the current transformation program you're running is the largest that's been undertaken in the insurance industry. What's been, I suppose, the most rewarding part of that for you? What have you found has really given you sort of the smile on your face or the pep in your step when you want to go on a miserable Friday afternoon like it is now today? What brings that to you?
I suppose we're still only at the start of it. There will be many years, and there's only one horizon. There'll be many horizons of transformation. So transformation just doesn't stop at the end of a program. But I think, I'm loving the excitement in the organization. We all align behind, I suppose, a strategy we've referred to as the Amplify strategy, and everybody understands what we're going after. There's a single mission in the business, and I think it's what I really find the most rewarding is when you see colleagues actually start to embrace the change, and when you get the feedback from the show and tell sessions where somebody's saying, "God, that's brilliant, I love that," or they're actually saying, "Oh, thanks, the feedback I gave the last time, I see you've actually included that." So for me, it's just feeling that excitement in the organization. But I suppose when there's that pull and that need and that desire for change in an organization, one of the challenging things also too is managing the pace. Everyone wants results quickly, like yesterday, and they want show me everything's going to be different now. But as everyone says, transformation is a marathon, not a sprint. And I suppose it's my responsibility to keep that pressure, the pull balanced, that we're moving fast enough to stay competitive, but I suppose steady enough not to destabilize the business.
That's right. I think what I've seen from you and from your organization is that people are always put first. And I often reference this when we've recruited for you over the years and spoken to candidates, and they'll say, what's AXA like? What's it like as a company? And I always remember you were the first client that left the office for COVID, and the mandate there or the comms there that I understood at the time was, listen, we don't know what this is, but everybody's mature, everybody's grown up. You can go home and work, and we'll figure it out. We'll figure out over the next 4 weeks what this looks like, and go from there. And I don't know.
I'll never forget that. I mean, I think the decision. Obviously, things were shutting down in the March 2020 because of COVID, and we made the call just to send everybody home and close all the offices. But we still had customers we needed to service, and we still had a business to run. And still, no matter what, that was the time I was most proud of both my team, but the rest of the organization, because at the time we didn't have the infrastructure, we didn't have the structure or processes for everybody to work from home, or even to keep everything operating. And it was literally a superhuman effort from everyone. I mean, I'm not sure I even had time to brush my hair in those 2 weeks.
Your hair's always immaculate.
But luckily video calling in work wasn't yet the norm. I think we weren't on Teams at that stage. It was Skype for Business. But we literally had the organization back on its feet and fully operational from home within 2 weeks. And if you had asked me that beforehand, I would have said, not possible, lead times for this, testing on that. But oh my God. So that still remains, I suppose it's one of those, you always hear about, people pull together in a crisis. And that was it.
And I think, I don't want to make this about gender, but the insurance industry is not necessarily known historically for having a really strong female management structure. But I think that's something that stood out in AXA. If you look at your actual right the way from CEO down, there's such strong, determined women in so many of the positions that are being held at the moment. And I think that has an impact. I think that has an impact for us in terms of when we have candidates working with you guys, as an example. They feel that. I don't want to say men don't have empathy, but I think when there's a full management structure and it is predominantly female, perhaps there is a more empathetic approach to how things are done. I don't know. You're the only.
I don't know. Like I've been in insurance now for a while, and honestly, I do remember the broker world, and at the time there was a lot more males in there. But in the insurance business, I've always felt it was quite equal, and particularly in AXA. So I honestly, I'm not sure if it's a gender thing. I think it's the energy of an organization, and that energy is created from the top down. And right now we have there's so much energy.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, and so it's not a gender thing; it's an AXA thing. That's basically, and that's amazing in itself. I suppose leading on to that, if we're looking at, say, diversity in leadership, what do you feel can make a real difference? Because AXA have stepped out of that zone, and this is probably a handy segue, but AXA have, sort of led in that sense. But, you've worked in other companies in the past. I know you're similar to me in that not had too many companies, just very long spans with each of them over the years. But when you were with Accenture, you no doubt you went and were on many different client sites over the years and saw different things. What do you think are the practical steps that make a difference for ensuring you have a nice balance, between everybody? It doesn't even have to just be gender. It doesn't have to be gender specific. It more so the balance within your leadership team or within a team. What do you think makes the most of that?
I suppose it's diverse. I mean, diversity is about many facets, and gender is only one of them. And obviously, but I personally, I can speak to gender and understanding that women in particular going for roles, sometimes they're like, oh God, I have to look after the kids as well as this. How am I going to take on more? And I've always said, don't try to overthink it beforehand. Just go for it. You'll figure it out when you get there. But I think broader than that, though, it is about consciously removing invisible barriers, and whether that's, really being it. I think it's just down to being aware of how you're pitching something, whether it's how you advertise the role, the panels, who's interviewing, what the mentoring pipelines are in an organization, because you definitely can't just hope diversity will happen, and that's diversity across all facets. I think you have to make sure you're engineering for fairness.
Okay, no, that's interesting. And I suppose, how do you, so you're engineering for fairness, you're setting up a culture that's the way you want to see it. And from what you're saying there, it's something that you maybe came into as well. It's not like you've had to redesign the culture in AXA. It was very much a way of being there.
The culture has evolved, and it continues to evolve, and it changes. It has absolutely, and it keeps changing, and we hope it keeps changing. And you want to keep kind of making it better and bringing, letting go some of the things that aren't working and bringing the good things with you.
Yeah. Okay. And what do you think from your perspective then with leadership over the years? Like, what's been your habit, or what's been your go-to? Are you a fiend for leadership books, or do you find yourself more sort of, adopting from people you see and stuff like that? Or, what's influenced your approach the most over the years?
I would definitely say not books on leadership, because I don't have time.
Yeah, fair enough.
I have three. And I have three kids, and I'm on the standing on the sidelines at the weekends and in the evenings.
Yeah,
it's definitely being influenced and watching the people around you, and not just in your in the local organization, but broader. So I'm constantly, and even looking at my colleagues now, and my own team, people who are on my team.
Yeah.
Looking at them and going, God, I really admire that thing that they do, or how they behave in that situation. So it's trying to be aware all the time of the good stuff, assimilate it, copy it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking there a moment ago. Obviously, you started off in Accenture. You were there for what, 11 years, was it?
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then a chunk of. I'm actually remembering this. I didn't write this down, but I did have a look earlier on.
So calculating my age next.
Yeah, no. Well, I won't go into all of them, don't worry. But like you did Accenture, then you did RSA, and then obviously being in AXA since then. So like when you were in Accenture, was this always an ambition of yours? Was your ambition to get to the top, or was it as you some different people have different ideas when they're in their 20s versus their 30s versus their 40s, and I'm just wondering what was Ash's, what was Aisling Kay's when she was 24, 25, what was your thoughts for, X amount of years later? Where did you want to get to? And have you actually closely followed that path, or has it gone in a different direction? What I'm saying to you is no one leaves school and thinks I want to be a recruiter, right? I promise you that. You ask every recruiter in the world, no one leaves school and says I want to be a recruiter when I grow up. So this is just something that happens to most of us, and then you end up in that industry for X amount of years. But from your perspective, what was your journey, and have you got off the path?
Well, I definitely, I'm sorry to say I didn't really have a plan. I was an engineer. I did engineering in college, so I definitely didn't expect to be here. I didn't even when I got into consulting, I didn't have a clear plan to move to this, to C-suite. I suppose my focus was always on problem solving and getting things done rather than climbing ladders. And my reputation was built on that problem solving and getting stuff done. And I do actually remember one project where everything that could go wrong went wrong. And I kind of found myself in a situation where I was leading by default, like just pulling together different teams from lots of different areas. And afterwards, when it was all sorted, the client thanked me for holding everything together for them. And I was like,
is that what I just did? Yeah, you're so in it.
It was a bit of a moment when I thought, kind of maybe leadership isn't this sounds a bit, but leadership isn't a destination.
Yeah.
It's about just kind of showing up for others, even when it's a bit messy. And that just simple thank you made me think I'm not too bad here. I can do this. Yeah. And I suppose I was lucky in a way that others had more confidence probably in me than I had in myself. I have loads of confidence in myself now, but that wasn't something that came overnight.
Yeah.
So, and as over time, as the challenges that were kind of given to me grew, so did the opportunities. So leadership just kind of came naturally. Yeah. So, I mean, I suppose I'm blessed that I've worked my way into a job and a role and a career that I absolutely love. And I think that's really important. Like if you're going to work and it's not what you want to do, just step away.
Stop doing it. Try if you can. I know sometimes we can say that and it's easier said than done because people have committed to bills and a life and whatever it might be. But also life's too short to be unhappy every day going into the office, regardless of what that office is. If
I won the lotto, it's a different story. Yeah. But no, I mean, I do really enjoy getting through the day, working with my team, working with my colleagues. So that's why you shouldn't work if you're not getting that out of it.
Yeah, well, I'm a firm believer, Ash. If you do the lotto, there should be a box you have to tick at the bottom of it that says, will you continue working if you win this? And if you tick that box, you're banned from doing the lotto for life. You should never be allowed to do the lotto again, because it should be the only reason you give up, or one of the reasons you give up your job. But anyway, you mentioned the simple thank you being so important to you. And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because so many companies either have this ethos of, sure, isn't that what they get paid for? They're just doing their job. Or they think that money or whatever else it might be is enough. And often we see so many people who really aren't sure if they're doing a good job or not. Or they're so embedded in as you say, the mess or the chaos.
Yeah.
That somebody turning around and saying, thanks so much, you did a brilliant job there and we really appreciate it, means so much. And that had a pivotal impact on your career, if you actually think about it. How do you foster, putting the one on you now, here we go, but how do you foster an environment within your team that gives that thanks to people without it needing to get to the point of handing in their notice to tell them how important they are? Because that's what we see. We're on the other side where we're having conversations with people every day telling us how they feel underappreciated, underpaid, undervalued, whatever it might be. We don't see a high level of attrition from your organization. So obviously there's something being done there to keep people involved. And as you say, you keep them engaged. You try and have these meetings even when everything's not worked out. But how do you foster a culture whereby people feel appreciated without it having to get to the boiling point, so to speak,
Yeah. Oh, look, we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect in this. And, I think every organization has I suppose the formal recognition processes, so we have the structured recognition. We also have within our teams whether, when we're face to face, we will, give prizes, we will run recognition. But I think, that's, as you said, that's the kind of the public stuff, but it's the little thank yous that are important. And I did say I always watch the people around me, whether they're people on my team or my colleagues. And I in particular have one person on my team, and it's not their job, but they're really, really good at kind of giving me the nod to say, oh, don't forget to say, look what that person has done. So I think it's just about making sure you're listening to the cues.
Yeah.
That this, there's somebody, because often when you're running so fast, you don't see it. So I think it's making sure you're taking the cues either from, if you see it yourself or others are saying it, to say thank you. But it's definitely one of the areas I think we can even do better in.
Okay, no, that's fair. Yeah, every company can. There's no, as you said, there's nobody perfect, but it's nice to hear that the stuff outside of the town halls and outside of the stuff for LinkedIn, everybody puts the pictures on LinkedIn and somebody's getting a bunch of flowers or whatever it might be. But often, as you say, it's that as you're going by somebody's desk to say, by the way, cheers for that, really appreciate it, or good job, or whatever it might have been. That's sometimes what sends people out the door feeling, a foot taller on a Friday than they did before. So stepping away from the purely professional stuff for a moment, then from your perspective, what's your ways of sort of decompressing then? You mentioned you're on the sidelines, you've got 3 children, you're trying to manage a career and also, sort of keeping 3 people alive as well as yourself. So what's the stuff that you do? You said you don't have the time for reading leadership books. You might, prefer to do something else. What do you do to switch off, to have that little bit of balance, or is it hard?
It is. I suppose I do a lot of weight training, resistance training. And I like it's class based, so I'm not just doing it on my own, and I really, really enjoy that. Now, in an ideal world, I'd be going 3 or 4 times a week. At the moment, it's maybe twice or once a week, but it definitely keeps me, getting exercise in keeps me sane. And whether that's having the time to go to the gym, or going for a walk in the late evening with friends, neighbors, someone in my family. Yeah, it's creating that headspace. And I've a great.
It's not one-on-one necessarily. You're getting the vibe of the class, or you're getting out to yap with a couple of people in the evening time and just decompress.
Yeah, and actually for a good while, so my daughter's just started college, but when she was in school, that our times kind of aligned, so she would come to the training with me, and I loved that. So yeah, for me, it's exercise is key to keeping me feeling sane, and just the chats with friends and family.
Can't beat them, can you? You can do all the things in the world, but having a chat and just shooting the breeze, whether it's professional or non-professional, stuff that got in the way is magic. If we're reflecting on stuff that you've done over the last 15, 20 years, and you were looking at sort of a couple of decisions, I should ask you this, are you someone that looks back and sort of says, I should have done this, or I should have done that, or I wish I'd done something different? Or are you somebody that says, no, we power forward, you can't change what's happened previously, and we look to the future and we try and sort of improve on a continuous basis? Which is your approach? And if it is to look back, what might you have changed? Sorry, very long-winded question there.
Yeah, no, honestly, I don't look back, because what's the point?
Yeah.
So you only look back if you want to learn from, want to do better next time, but you don't regret it. Don't regret anything, because everything you do, everything that you experience, I believe, shapes you, and you learn from it. And even those experiences that were hard, they shape you. They create. They make you stronger. So, no, it's. I don't look back and have any regrets. It is just about looking forward. What can how to create better next time.
Yeah. Okay. And if you were looking at aspiring COOs, CIOs, C-suite, it doesn't have to be specific to the technology or the operations side of things, but if you're looking at people who are saying, geez, Aislinn's very inspiring, I hopefully enjoyed this podcast, and they're looking maybe for a little bit of advice, because people can sometimes feel, oh, that's great, you got there, but it's not that easy for all of us. But as you say, hard work is absolutely key to anything, showing up every day. But what's the piece of advice you would give to aspiring sort of C-suite members in the future?
If it, aspiring C-suite for me almost jars. I would say don't chase the title.
Yeah.
Chase the impact. The title will come. So if you focus on solving meaningful problems, whether that's for the within the organization, for the customer, for your colleagues, I think the leadership opportunities will come with that. And if you're somebody that isn't oozing in confidence and being your own personal PR person, just don't be afraid of complexity. You will, you're an intelligent person. You got there because you're an intelligent person. You will figure it out when you get there. And I definitely think, sorry, just one last piece.
No,
CIO, COO. Sometimes I've seen organizations or people come into an organization and say, oh, that's, they are support functions. It's a silo. And I firmly believe that CIO and COO, you are part of the business. You are the business. And the best CIOs and CIOs are the kind of the translator between the business, the technology, and the people. And you're constantly making sure that you're building trust in all of those areas. And I think if you're constantly thinking about the interactions between, the people, the business, the technology, and not just technology, well, then you're going to be an effective leader of change.
Okay, that's some really good advice, and I think I think I found my soundbite for you for when we put this on LinkedIn, where you say, "Don't chase the title, chase the outcome," and chase the impact. Sorry, chase the impact. I'll get it right when I look back. Don't worry. But you know what I mean. But it's a great piece of advice, because people can get hung up on the title and sometimes don't think about what change they can impact along the way. And it doesn't have to be the title. Sometimes the title isn't everything, So that's a really nice piece of advice. One thing that we're doing, I suppose, as part of this is to ask you if you would leave a question further. We may be stealing this from another popular podcast, but the idea is to leave a question for your next guest, or for the next guest on this podcast, something you'd be curious to hear their perspective on. And is there something that you would ask them maybe?
Well, I think kind of pulling on the thread where you asked me around, how I learn from others, I would ask, what's the one leadership behavior you've seen in others that you're consciously trying to take on or adopt yourself, and why?
Interesting. I like that. That's a nice question, and I'll make sure we have it asked, and I give you the answer on that once we have it on our next podcast, which will be up very shortly. Listen, from my perspective, I've loved spending the time chatting to you. It's lovely to get this sort of time with you and get an insight into what your thought process is and how you've helped build the team that you have in place at the moment, and to see how well AXA is performing, and this transformation program hopefully will go from strength to strength over the next couple of years. So from me, from everybody at Fruition, and from everybody listening, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, and loved having you on.
Thanks a million, Stephen. I enjoyed the chat.
Thanks, Ash.